Ever feel like you're just drowning in information these days, like trying to sip from a fire hose?
Oh, absolutely. Information overload is a real struggle.
Yeah. And here on the deep dive, we're all about cutting through that noise, really getting down to the bedrock, extracting those golden nuggets of insight. And today, we're going deep, really deep into the concept of what it means to act as philosophers.
Not just absorbing information passively, but really grappling with it.
Right. So we're diving into the life and work of Johann Sturm. He was a German philosopher who lived from 1635 to 1703. And let me tell you, this guy was anything but a one-trick pony.
Oh, yeah, a real polymath.
We've got excerpts here from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, and they paint a picture of a guy who just had his fingers in everything. Professor, physicist, mathematician, astronomer, even dabbled in theology.
So he wanted to understand the entire universe.
Yeah. Right. So today we're trying to uncover how Sturm approached philosophical inquiry, how he acted as a philosopher. We'll explore his concept of eclecticism, his scientific method, and his views on causality. These are tools for critical thinking that are still relevant today, especially when we're all trying to navigate this deluge of information.
Absolutely. Tools that can help us pick out the signal from the noise.
Exactly. Now, Sturm's central philosophical idea was eclecticism. I think a lot of people hear that word and think, oh, just picking and choosing whatever ideas you like.
Like a philosophical buffet.
But Sturm's approach was much more deliberate.
Oh, definitely. It wasn't about randomly grabbing ideas. It was about carefully selecting what he believed to be true from all the different philosophical schools while rejecting what he saw as errors. So it's not just accepting information at face value. It's about looking at it critically and picking out the best parts.
So a discerning approach.
Very much so. And this was a direct contrast to what he called sectarian philosophy. Thinkers who just blindly followed a single authority. Like, oh, Aristotle said it, so it must be true.
No questions asked.
Right. Sturm even listed out the main philosophical sects of his time. The Aristotelians, obviously, the Cartesians, Gassendists who were reviving atomism, and even the alchemists. His main critique was that these sectarians prioritized loyalty to their leader over the truth of the arguments themselves.
So it was about dogma over genuine inquiry.
That's it. And you can see why Sturm saw that as a problem. If you're just accepting someone else's word for it, you might miss out on valuable insights from other perspectives. Or you might not even see the flaws in your own cherished beliefs.
So what were the benefits of eclecticism in Sturm's view? Why did he think this was the superior way to act as philosophers?
Well, first, he recognized that the human mind is limited. No single person or school of thought can grasp the whole truth. It's a humble perspective, realizing that we all have blind spots.
That we need to rely on each other to see the bigger picture.
Exactly. He saw the pursuit of truth as a collaborative effort, bringing together the best ideas from different thinkers, building upon and refining each other's work. There's a great quote from him. He says that truth can only be viewed in part, and that the sciences are to be advanced and stabilized by means of united powers and communicated advice. So it's this idea of collective effort in seeking knowledge.
Your real community of inquiry.
Exactly. And then Sturm saw eclecticism as encouraging critical assessment. It's not about blindly adopting ideas. It's about engaging with them, refining them, making them better. So it's actively questioning, evaluating, not just absorbing.
More dynamic, right, more progressive than clinging to tradition.
Definitely. He saw philosophy as this ongoing project, not a fixed set of beliefs. He even compared it to a ship that constantly needs repairs and new parts to stay afloat and make progress. It's never truly finished, always evolving.
I love that image. A ship constantly being upgraded and improved.
Right. And this is why eclecticism resonates with what so many learners are looking for today. It's about getting multiple viewpoints without feeling overwhelmed by rigid dogma.
Okay, so eclecticism is the guiding philosophy, the why. But how did Sturm actually do philosophy? How did he put it into practice?
Right. So our sources outline a three-step scientific method that he used. The first step was collecting phenomena. This was heavily influenced by figures like Bacon and Boyle. It emphasized the importance of careful, accurate observation and experimentation. You can't just have an idea. You need solid empirical evidence to back it up.
Back to basics, right? Observing the world and documenting what you see.
Absolutely. And Sturm actually integrated this experimental approach into his teaching. He was one of the first university professors in Germany to introduce experimental teaching, what he called collegia. He was also familiar with the new scientific instruments of his day, telescopes, microscopes. He saw how these tools were expanding our ability to observe the world.
So step one, build that foundation of evidence. What's next?
Step two was collecting hypotheses. And here's where Sturm's deep knowledge of the history of philosophy really shines. He believed in meticulously surveying all the different hypotheses, both old and new, that had been proposed to explain the phenomena. He didn't just focus on the latest theories, he went all the way back to the pre-Socratics, right up to his contemporaries.
So there's value in those older ideas.
He thought so. His knowledge of philosophical literature was extensive, and you can see that in his final work, Compendium Physicae Modernae Senioris. He saw hypotheses as this middle ground between simple observations and proven truths. Some things are self-evident, but others require further investigation.
So gather your observations, gather your potential explanations. What's the final step?
The third step is selection and reconciliation. This is where the eclecticism comes back in. It involves critically examining the collected hypotheses, having rational discussions, using logic to arrive at the most satisfying explanation. It's the more philosophical, reasoned part of the process.
So you're not just picking a hypothesis at random.
Not at all. You're actively evaluating them against the evidence, maybe even combining the best parts of different ideas to come up with a stronger explanation.
Kind of like a synthesis.
That's it. And Sturm has specific criteria for what made a good hypothesis. It needed to be plausible, connected to the phenomena. Stronger hypotheses could explain more observations. He also valued simplicity. He liked to use Occam's razor, the idea that simpler explanations are usually better. He saw that as reflecting God's elegant design of the world.
Keep it simple, right?
Right. He also said that good hypotheses shouldn't contradict established facts, other well-supported hypotheses, or basic principles. And interestingly, he thought hypotheses should satisfy not just our intellect, but also our imagination and senses. Because ultimately, we're talking about phenomena that happen in the physical world.
It's not just abstract theorizing. It needs to connect with our experience.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach, engaging different ways of understanding. And this entire process, from gathering evidence to evaluating hypotheses through an eclectic lens, that's what it means to act as philosophers.
So it's active, it's engaged, it's not just sitting back and passively absorbing information.
Absolutely. It's about seeking out diverse perspectives, testing them, building a coherent understanding of the world. And this brings us to one of the more surprising parts of Sturm's thought, his theory of occasionalism.
Occasionalism. That's not a word you hear every day. Our sources tell us this was part of Sturm's metaphysical framework, along with mechanism and final causes. Can you unpack that a little?
Sure. So occasionalism is the idea that finite beings, us, objects in the world, we don't actually have the power to cause things to happen. We're just the occasions for God's direct causal intervention. Like when you kick a ball, it's not really your foot that makes the ball move. It's God causing the ball to move in response to your action.
So we're like puppets in a divine play.
In a way, yeah. And this comes from Sturm's understanding of matter and form. He saw matter as fundamentally passive, just pure extension, no inherent power to act. And he argued that forms, the specific characteristics of matter, are just modifications of this passive matter. So they're passive too, no active causal force within them.
So if matter and form are passive, where does the power to actually do anything come from?
God. Sturm believed that God is the only truly active being, the sole efficient cause of all change in the world. He even says only God's most efficacious volition is that truly acting power, which, rigorously speaking, moves the whole corporeal world by means of his sole immediate power.
So everything that happens is ultimately God's doing.
Yes, but there's nuance to it. Sturm differentiated between God's absolute power and his respective or hypothetical power. God has the power to make the sun rise in the west, but he chooses to make it rise in the east. He sets up a predictable order. Similarly, God doesn't act randomly. He subordinates his actions to certain conditions, the state of the world, human minds.
Okay, so there's order, predictability. How does this connect with those passive forms?
Good question. Sturm saw these passive forms as sine qua non causes.
Yeah.
Necessary conditions for something to happen, even though they don't have the power to make it happen themselves, like the trigger of a gun.
Yeah.
It's necessary for the gun to fire, but it doesn't contain the force that propels the bullet. God's action is the firing itself. So the form of a ball, for example, is necessary for it to move when you kick it, but it's not the cause of that movement.
So the form sets the stage, but God is the actor.
You got it. And it's interesting to compare Sturm to someone like Malebranche, who's also known for occasionalism. They both agree that God is the sole cause, but Sturm emphasizes the passive forms as explaining the specific details of how things happen. Malebranche focuses more on the laws of nature.
So for Sturm, understanding the specific forms of things is still important for scientific explanation, even if those forms themselves don't have power.
Precisely. You want to explain why something happens the way it does, you look at the forms, which you investigate empirically. It's a way to reconcile mechanism with the idea of God as the ultimate source of activity. And even within this mechanist view, Sturm still made room for teleology, final causes. He saw God as the designer with purposes in mind. Although this did lead him to downplay the role of the laws of nature in explaining specific events.
So he built this whole system trying to address the big questions about how the world works.
Absolutely. And at the heart of it all is his commitment to acting as a philosopher,
Sure.
engaging with ideas, examining them, constructing his own understanding.
So for the learner listening, what are the takeaways from our deep dive into Johann Sturm?
Well, first, his embrace of eclecticism shows us how to synthesize knowledge. Look beyond a single perspective. Take the best ideas from different sources. Keep refining your understanding. Second, his scientific method is a practical framework for inquiry. Observe carefully. Gather your hypotheses. Evaluate them critically. And finally, his occasionalism, even if it seems a bit out there, makes us think about causality in a new way.
And I think Strum's approach is so relevant today, especially in this age of information overload. He reminds us to engage with diverse viewpoints, to avoid dogma, to build our knowledge thoughtfully. And his focus on observation, careful evaluation, that's crucial in today's world.
It's about being active in our learning, not passive.
So as you navigate this sea of information, think about Sturm's idea of passive forms. How might that relate to things like online information architecture, algorithms influencing our choices, or even the impact of our environment on our behavior? It makes you think about how different ways of understanding causality, even ones that seem unusual, can shape how we learn and solve problems.
Lots to ponder there.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Johann Sturm and what it means to act as philosophers. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.